Hello everyone, it's Rowan from the Eternal Life Fan Club, and in today's video I'm going to be giving you the reason I think that I believe in God. Belief is a tricky thing, and this is hard to pin down. It's hard to pin down exactly how I changed my belief and how that happened. But I'm going to give it a shot, okay? Because in my previous video where I revealed that I believe in God, a few people said, I should have given more of a reason. A few people, especially one of them being Devin Tracy, he made a video, my friend Devin, he made a video, basically saying, hey, look, you didn't give really a reason why you believe in God. And that's totally understandable, because I really didn't give that many reasons at all, I don't think. I think I said something like, it wasn't in depth, okay? It was a kind of on-the-fly video. I did it really quickly, and I didn't prepare for that video, so I didn't, like, plan ahead and think about all the questions that would come at me and stuff. So here, I'm going to give it a shot. I think I believe in God because, essentially, in like a sentence, it would be like, I think I scared myself into believing in God. Okay? That's literally what I think happened. Because I was always a fan of the concept of Pascal's Wager. The only problem with Pascal's Wager, so when I was an atheist, is what I'm saying, was when I was an atheist, I was like, wow, this Pascal's Wager thing, it actually makes sense if it was feasible. The only problem with Pascal's Wager is that people can't choose to believe in God. That was always my problem. I liked the concept of the wager, which is like, hey, hedge your bets on God because you have nothing to lose, everything to gain. It made sense. Especially for someone that wants to live forever. If, you bet on this hypothetical God that might help you live forever, like, it's just something extra you can do. But the problem, what I'm trying to get to, is the problem with Pascal's Wager is you cannot just change your beliefs voluntarily. You can't just voluntarily say, okay, I'm going to believe in God now because I'm hedging my bets. So that's why Pascal's Wager never worked for me. So although I was a fan of the concept, I couldn't participate in the wager. So I kind of created my own wager. As an atheist, I started to, you could say I feared God with my behaviors. So I wagered with my behaviors, my actions, because I couldn't believe in God, couldn't choose to believe in God, but I could choose to behave in such a way that would maybe gain favor with a God if there was a God, right? That I could behave and try to guess what the rules of a God might be and do everything I can to live as though there were a God, though I didn't believe it, right? So that was my own wager. You could call it Rowan's Wager. And I was doing that for a long time. I was still, I was going through the motions. You could call it going through the motions. Like, I was trying to obey a lot of the rules of the Bible. Though, obviously, you don't know what God is the real God, right? If there's a wager, this is the problem with Pascal's Wager. Again, you don't know if there's a God, what God is it? There's billions of different gods people believe in, right? Maybe billions is a bit overshooting, but a lot of gods people believe in. So I was like, I guess I was guessing according to what made sense to me, as far as if there was a God, what kind of God would there be? And a lot of the rules of the Bible just so happen to coincide with that type of God that I would guess would be the kind of God. So, a lot of the things in the Ten Commandments and a lot of the rules in the Bible, it just kind of made sense. It was like basic morality stuff, okay? But not just basic morality stuff. It was like going above and beyond, going out and trying to help people. This is talked about in the Bible, that you're supposed to help people and you're supposed to, you're not supposed to be rich, for instance, is one of the rules that Jesus talked about in the Bible. He said, it's harder for a rich person to get into heaven than for a camel to fit through the eye of a needle. So those are the types of rules. That's just an example. There's a plethora of different things I was trying to follow in the Bible just because they made sense to me. Not because I had proof that the Bible spoke for God or that was the real word of God or anything like that. But they just happen to coincide with what I would imagine a God would judge people by. For instance, you know, even without the Bible, I could still guess that if there's a God, maybe God wouldn't want people to be rich. That he would judge people just for being rich when they're starving people. That to me seems a very basic, you know, assumption. Seems reasonable. If I was a God, I'd probably judge rich people. You know, very, very rich people when they're starving people, and like how you're spending your money and if you're being selfish or not, this kind of thing. Obviously, in addition to the other basic moral codes that we all agree on as a society, like don't kill people, don't murder, don't rape, and don't abuse people, and basic libertarian principles. You know, this is just an example. But in addition to that, I started to follow the motions as far as I even like obeyed rules. For instance, I talked about this in a few of my videos. Like I was a God-fearing atheist, so I would even do things like I would even obey the Lord's Supper. Like I would take the Lord's Supper and like imagine, okay, maybe there's, you know, all this stuff, and I would do these rules because it's just like I was preparing. So anyways, that's just to lay the groundwork. I just want you to get that. That's how what I'm doing is different than Pascal's Wager. Okay, so we got that. You got that, right? You understand what I was doing there as an atheist. I called it the hypothetical God. I would fear the hypothetical God. I would try to obey the rules of the hypothetical God. I would make my best guess, an estimation as to what the rules of the hypothetical God might be. But then, somewhere along the line, I started to wonder, what if that's not good enough? And like, meaning, what if God would judge me for not believing in God? Like maybe that would be one of the rules, although that never made sense to me. Because I made many videos before about how belief is not a choice, so it wouldn't make sense for a God to judge us based upon if we believe or not. So it didn't make sense that God would judge us based upon, you know, if we're an atheist or if we believe this or that. I just said, okay, look, if there's a God, if God's smart and wise and whatever, God would just judge us exclusively based upon our behaviors. But then there was a splinter in my mind that started to wonder, for some weird reason, that it does not make sense that God might judge us based upon our beliefs. Like maybe God would want us to believe, and even if there was just a small chance that God would somehow require us to believe in him or her or whatever this God is, then it would make sense to do it, because that's just a little bit more increased odds of gaining this hypothetical salvation, right? So I started to follow that track in my mind. Like, oh gosh, maybe I do need to believe, uh-oh. So what I started to do, thinking now that maybe God would not only judge me by my behaviors, but maybe God would actually judge me for being an unbeliever, which didn't make sense to me, but I still thought, okay, well, it's maybe possible, so I better do that too. But then I had this dilemma like, well, oh gosh, I actually can't believe, because I don't believe in God at that point. When I was an atheist, I was like, I can't believe. So I was like, gosh, I'm kind of screwed. If that's the case, if God's going to require me to believe in him, then I'm kind of screwed. So I started to think to myself, how might I be able to change my beliefs? And I started to think, well, maybe if I just go through the motions, I do more things like praying, I do more, you know, ceremonial things, religious things, just attend church services, I might actually just pick up a belief somehow. And I wanted to believe so desperately that I was willing to do all that in hopes that it would change my belief. And at the end of all of this, I cannot say for sure that it was going through those motions that actually ended up changing my beliefs. I still cannot tell you for sure how my beliefs have changed. But it could be that going through the motions, somehow all of that, actually I started reading the Bible more. Maybe that had something to do with it. So all of these factors, what I'm saying is all of these factors might have played into the eventual changing of my beliefs, but I cannot say for sure what particular thing did it. But I'm trying to give you, as best as I can, explain the reason how I'm all of a sudden a believer. So there you go. At this point, I'm still going to go with the theory that we cannot willfully, voluntarily change our beliefs. But maybe it had to do with just the actions and the going through the motions or whatever. At least maybe doing all those things maybe just increased the odds that I would become a believer. But, you know, I'm not saying for anyone out there that you could do what I did and then you all of a sudden believe in God. It could be, and I believe at this point that there are people out there, whatever they do, whatever motions they go through, whatever prayers they say to the hypothetical God, that they'll never believe. Because that's I don't think belief is a choice. And so at this point, I'm still thinking that the God, the hypothetical God, you know, I'm still going to call him the hypothetical God because that makes sense to me because I don't know that this God exists. So I still like the term hypothetical God. To me, actually, God is kind of like Willy Wonka. Okay, it's like a metaphor. Willy Wonka was judging the children in his factory, and they didn't know they were being judged. Okay, they didn't know that they were being tested. In other words, and you know, he was looking at their actions and observing them, you know, with his little judgmental eye. That's kind of the way I see God. It's all very hypothetical. It's very, the rules of God are still hypothetical. No one knows. But it makes sense to make a guess. It makes sense to make your best guess. Go the Pascal's Wager route as best you can. Do my wager, at least, the Rowan's wager, which is just wagering based with your actions. You're just trying to live the best life possible, obey all the rules. Just basically pretend like there is a judgmental Willy Wonka eye in the sky that's judging you at all times and observing you and gonna maybe decide if you get to live forever. That's basically in a gist what I am doing. Okay? You can do that without believing that such a God exists. You can do it based upon just the fearing the possibility of it. Okay? So, as an atheist, I was fearing the possibility of a God. It's still the same way. I'm still fearing the possibility of a God. You know, you could say that's how I ended up believing in God. I scared myself into believing in God. I'm such a fearful person that I feared death so much. I feared all these possibilities. I feared the possibility of a judgmental God that I feared the potential consequences of not believing. So that's how it is. And it still doesn't make sense that God would even care if we believe, because belief is such a petty thing. Like, who cares what people believe? It's really all about people's actions. But I guess it was just that small chance that, oh, maybe God would care that led me down that path of eventually believing. And so nothing I've said here even has anything to do with evidence. Have you noticed that? Like, evidence didn't really play into, it wasn't really a factor. And I was surprised by that. Like, I always thought, oh, as an atheist, I thought, oh, I need so much evidence for God. I actually don't have any more evidence now than I did before. There's not something I can say, well, look, I figured out this evidence. Here's this evidence for God. I actually have nothing. Just what you can observe here in the world, and some people observe the world and you know, think that proves God. Some people observe the world and say that's not proof of God at all. I'm actually in the second category. I observe the world and I say, well, that's not proof of God. which is why I'm such an agnostic. I'm stuck in this agnosticism, but it's good to be agnostic. Agnosticism really is awesome because it is being humble. Agnosticism is just saying you don't know, and in addition to that, just be a. I would recommend. Let me just wrap this up. I'd recommend everyone, whether you believe in God or not, try your best to at least be agnostic about it, right? Agnostic, and just say, try to be God-fearing, whether you believe or not. And I do think that is possible. I do think you can be God-fearing. You can be a God-fearing atheist. You could be a God-fearing believer. It's really a separate thing. The God-fearing part is all about your actions. It's you're fearing this hypothetical potential for a judgment based upon what you do. You're living as though you're going to be judged. Like the Willy Wonka story. That's it, man. Willy Wonka is a great meme, Really a great metaphor for the hypothetical God, really. Maybe I'll get more into that as well in the future. But anyways, I just wanted to try to explain why I believe, and there you go. That's the best I can put it together. Thank you. And may you live forever.